All right, 3, 2, 1.
And with that clap, my front camera died, and there goes my dreams of a really cool multi-camera video.
Since last week, we were getting caught up from November into December and stopped right for Christmas. Just getting things set up in Dialogic, getting things set up so that I had all the scenes and everything. I did all that stuff. I took what I had done in Miro and had already planned out, and then I used that to work on stuff that didn't need a computer, and I did a lot of prep work, which was really good. All that prep work really helped me develop everything so that when I was sitting down at the computer, I was able to just get things going. And so I don't have too much done. What I do have done is real basic kind of scene, go through things. So here are some of the things that I have, that I'm working on, that I'd like to have done by next week, and we'll see how far we get. So we have inventory, which picks up different things. And we have an item and a description, and that inventory is working great. We also have, this is the one I want to get working. Hopefully by next week, you'll be able to pick this up, and this will disappear from this inventory, and you'll be able to put it into this inventory here. At least that's the dream. With that functionality hooked up, I'll be able to get the questionnaire worked on and the dialogue scene, so that as you click on these words, they'll populate this inventory, and there'll be more words to click on. And that's kind of where I'm going to be at probably for the next week as I get all the systems put in. And that's pretty much what I've been doing since Christmas. As far as the project is, figuring out what the systems are, building them out, and then now I'm bringing them all together and working with Dialogic so that I can get a full game loop. And that's really something that is really the next step, is get that full game loop with all of the capsule art and stuff. So that's not really that exciting. It's literally me, does this work, do a print debug, it worked, what's happening with this, okay, let me go through this step, does that work, okay, let me look at the documentation. It's that kind of stuff. So it's slow going, and because I'm working an hour at a time, 2 hours at a time, when I have time, it's even slower than if I had 4 or 8 hour chunks to just burn through some of these problems. If I had 8 hours, I could probably sit down and bust out a system a day, but instead it's taking multiple days to get single systems up and running. But that's okay. I'm totally fine with that. I'm happy with the way things are working, and that's just kind of how it's going to have to be. Another thing that I started working on, I think in January, I saw a really interesting video by Aramis about him using an LLM to do some rubber duck dev, and how he was surprised at how useful it was for that kind of stuff. And my view on those kind of tools is that they are tools, and that ultimately they are out of my price range and out of my ability to actually use or do anything with. And so I've kind of just not really done any exploration into them. Also, as someone who is learning how to program, and just learning how to program, I don't want the tool doing the work for me. I need to be doing it so I can learn how all this stuff works. And so the way in which I interact with that tool, I have to be very specific about, so that I don't hurt myself in the long run in my programming and game development. But with all the AI stuff that's happening, I realized that this tool is not going away, and it is going to be apparently accessible to people with minimal hardware like myself. And so I started to go in and I got a Ollama. Well, I figured out what Ollama was, And I went in to Ollama and I figured out how to get it set up, and then I figured out how to get a Docker desktop installed so that I could run Open WebUi so they can host large language models. Now, I don't have a GPU that can run this stuff. I'm running this off my processor because my GPU is not good enough. But for what I'm doing, I'm not looking for code completion. I'm not looking for an immediate output of a response. Instead, what I'm using it for is, one, I've been testing it with D&D just because I think that is a much more difficult thing to see how accurate or how close is this skew to the information that I input. And so that's been my test, because I don't know about programming, but I've played D&D and I understand how that should kind of work and what those rules are. And so when it puts out BS, it's easier for me to spot in that format. And arguably, running a game, being a dungeon master, there's a different level of complexity that is similar to programming that I think is a good analog. And with the D&D stuff, its output has been unimpressive. But for the code stuff, when I'm using it for code things, one of the things that I asked it most recently was, in a lot of tutorials, they'll format their strings with %n, %s. I didn't know what that was. I was able to drop that into, I can show what that looks like. So I was able to drop that into the model, and it was able to output how that works. And so I set up one model that I just dumped in all the Godot documents and as much stuff as I could using the Open WebUI's little knowledge section. And then if I add something like, and it's not fast. Like I said, my system is not fast, but I can still run them locally. And that was the thing that really got me into looking at this as a viable thing to actually use. And for this kind of stuff, it's actually useful because I can dump this in, come back over here, work on whatever I got going on over here, keep working, and then as this turns out, whenever this is done, we'll just output, and then I can look and see like, oh, what did it output? Is this helpful? And so if I have a question about why isn't this working, or why isn't this working, I can go ahead and I can just dump it into this language model, keep working on trying to figure out that problem, and then see if it will give me something that I can use. The thing that it won't do is it won't generate, well, I don't know if it will generate code that's usable or that just needs to be tweaked, because I don't know enough to understand the code that it outputs. So usually if it does do any kind of code completion, I just look at it and see if I can understand the way it's set up so that I can use it in my own project. But I haven't done any of that because once again, I need to be learning it for myself because I don't want to sabotage myself by not gaining that skill set and that knowledge of an experience of actually going through the process of hunting down the answer and getting all the ancillary information that you get along the way. And that's something that I think using an AI model really robs you of, is a lot of that ancillary rabbit hole kind of information that you pick up along the way that comes up later because you've seen it. You'll be able to easier find those answers and understand things. It's how you grow your understanding of the thing that you're doing. And so as long as the tool is improving that, helping me with that, then I need to learn how to use it, I need to learn how to incorporate it into my workflow, and have a better understanding of the limitations. Because I think that's also a pitfall that a lot of people are going to have, is they're going to have an expectation that this tool will be able to do X, Y, and Z, and it may be able to, but the expectation will be that anybody will be able to make it do that. And the reality, I think, is that you're going to need people who are already experienced and have a working knowledge of the tool to be able to get that output. You're not going to be able to just take somebody off the street, dump them in a chair, and say, hey, you're a programmer. This AI tool is going to let you program anything. I don't see that happening anytime soon. But I've been around with a lot of things, so maybe within a year these things will be right in the game form. Who knows? Get R1 8B, then I have Llama 3.2 and 5.4 are the three models I've been testing on. Right, and so it's a lot faster. Just go to deep seek, you can see. So yeah, so if you want instant kind of output, do that. And then here you can see it's a lot faster because I don't have a huge prompt set up so that it formats things and does things in GD script. So depending on how fast I want output, depends on what kind of model you use and how you have it set up. Super interesting. But that is pretty much what I've been working on. I have a couple of different ideas that I want to see about implementing. One is using something like this. This is using a Blender node to take a mesh and then turning it into Lego block type things. I want to test that and see if I can import a style like that into the game. My idea was that as you help the player unlock memories, things will go from a low resolution to a high resolution, but in 3D, which would be kind of a fun visual model. But I want to see what it looks like. So I'm going to do some tests on that. Some other things I want to work on is I have Reaper, and I haven't even opened or done anything with it, and so I want to start using Reaper to try to make some audio and start working through that stuff. But
yeah, so that's where I'm at with that stuff. Thanks for coming and hanging out and seeing what's going on this week. Hopefully you'll come back next week and check out the update. Come hang out with me Sunday at 7 when I'm hopefully finishing up The Witness sometime soon. Depending on how smart I am, help me with those puzzles. I need some help. And do all the YouTube stuff. Hit me up on Blue Sky. Blah, blah, blah. Stuff. And have a good one. Bye.